I worked on 8 different clients in 1 week. I had a bunch of active projects. I had a bunch of major proposals. And so when you're involved in that many smaller things, a lot of these things will escape you.
That is Jay Martin, who's got over 25 years of management consulting experience, including time at Arthur D. Little and IBM Global Services, and nearly 18 years as an independent consultant. Jay has done a better job than anyone I've met at maintaining an exhaustive list of all his projects. The document is 16 pages long and includes the details on well over 100 projects. In this episode, Jay discusses how he started building this list and the benefits of keeping such a document current. In the show notes, I'm including a link where you can download Jay's list. I would encourage every consultant to maintain such a list, and I thank Jay for the willingness to share his. To learn more about Jay, you can visit his LinkedIn profile, links in the show notes, as well as taking a look at his extensive project list. I hope you'll consider signing up for the weekly Unleashed email. I will send you the transcript of each episode, book recommendations, and consulting tips. You can visit umbrex.com and click on the Unleashed tab. Hey, Jay, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Well, appreciate it.
So, Jay, I have here in front of me a 16-page bio of you. And I got to say, I see bios and resumes from a lot of consultants. I don't think I've ever seen someone who's, been as professional and thorough as you in putting together a really impressive bio. It's 16 pages. The first page here, you have a little kind of mini kind of bio up at the top of the page, your employer history. And then the real meat of it is 15 pages of project descriptions, where it's sort of a 1-paragraph project description organized by function. So supply chain and operations management. There's, 10 or so, 15 projects there. And then you have like transportation logistics, procurement, sourcing, and supplier management, product lifecycle management. So I'm really impressed. And thanks for coming on the show. Tell me a little bit about I'd love to hear how you use this document and how you maintain it.
Okay. Well, thanks, Will. I appreciate it. I would tell you that the document came about as a hybrid between the Arthur D. Little format of Ashok Bhagani, who was one of my bosses, and also Arun Meyer, who was the chairman of BCG of India. And what they used to have was a small paragraph in the beginning, and then they would have dozens or hundreds of bullets of projects, and then sort of a wrap-up section. And after I went to IBM had a little bit of the same thing, but then they had a 1-page kind of historical background with respect to, what companies you've worked at, just so clients could see them. So I would own up to that. My bio is actually a combination of Arthur D. Little and IBM's, and just one that I've kept up over the last almost 25 years. Getting back to how do I use it now? One of the major uses of it is a repository for everything I've done. I actually started my first real corporate job 32 years ago. I was in a CAD/CAM and robotics lab at Lehigh University. And then I was sort of a consultant back then. But over the years, and I just recently have done the count, I've worked for more than 110 companies in 7 countries on 4 continents. And so, as you get older, you begin to forget all the things you've done. And the bio serves as a excellent repository to keep track of everything that I've done. And then it also has a couple other uses. One, when I run into people who I'm not sure what they want or what they might need, I would give them the full bio, the 16 pages. It's about to grow to 18 pages, by the way, because I'm putting the last couple of years in. And it comes across as a little obnoxious, but the thing it does, because the structure is, per your comment earlier, that it has sort of a functional sections that very quickly someone can look at the half a dozen different functional sections, whether it be supply chain, product development, strategy, and they can go and see the types of projects and engagements that I've done.
Yeah. And I'll just interrupt there, Jay. To me, it doesn't come across as obnoxious at all. It comes across to me as, here's someone who really is kind of managing the career and is, investing just that little bit extra of keeping track of things. And it's sort of the meta message is, hey, just like I'm keeping track of stuff in my career and, documenting it all, I'm going to apply that same kind of rigor and order to the project if I work with you, right? So it has this meta message of, someone who's really squared away, and it doesn't come across to me as obnoxious at all. And it kind of just lays out your experience, by each functional area. So, and it's just super credible, right? Like, as opposed to someone saying, just being provide 2 bullets or having a 1 or 2 page resume. It's saying, here's the high level one, but I've done all this stuff, and you can't just make that up in a day. It's really impressive. So you sometimes will send out the full bio, and then sometimes it also makes it easy if you don't want to do that for a specific project opportunity. You can quickly customize it.
Yeah, and you've probably seen this as you approach me with the different things. Usually, what I do is I either have a bio that I've done for something like that, for example, like food and beverage or automotive or aerospace. I already have done that for someone else, and so I can quickly send those out. But in other cases, I look at what the requirements are. For example, you had a venture capital one for the food and beverage industry. I would go back into my full bio, and it's usually a 2-step process, actually 3-step. First thing is I cut out anything that I don't think is relevant. Then I look at the length of it, and then I say to myself, okay, I'm trying to get down to 5 or 6 pages usually. Then I'll take the 5 or 6 pages and I'll start sorting them by A, B, and C. Which ones do I want to bring to the top? Which ones do I want to put in the middle? And it is important to get the exact order right, but it is important to, especially when you're asking somebody to look at 5 pages, to bring the most relevant ones forward to kind of give them a taste of here are the most relevant things that you're looking for. The third thing I do is I go back then and look at the length of the document and say, okay, any of the C's that I want to cut out, do I want to get it down to 4 pages? Am I fine to leave it at 5 or 6? I would tell you, I almost never get below 4 pages. It's usually at least 4 to 6. I almost never do more than 6. And then literally within 15 or 20 minutes, I can send the person who's requesting it a perfectly tailored bio to what they're looking for to best present my qualifications for whatever assignment they have.
Yeah. And some people might ask, how do you approach the task of cutting it by function or by industry? So it seems that you've cut yours mostly by functional area. So you'll have like one category would be, I don't know, supply chain management, right? But it might be across different industries. Did you ever think about having kind of a second section where you've organized it by industry, or how do you find industry specific examples if you
So a great question, by the way. So I only sort it by function for the master bio. For the specific opportunities, I do it by industry all the time. So for example, the one I just gave you, food and beverage, I would go into my master bio and I would go through what I usually start at the bottom. I start at the bottom and I go up and say, okay, keep, delete, keep. And I pretty much keep anything that might be that relevant to that industry, either from the industry or from a related industry. For example, for food and beverage, I might keep a food retailer, or I might keep a pharmaceutical as a highly regulated environment might appeal to that client. Then when I get down to the final ordering, in some cases, I bring non-functional projects that are in the same industry forward above non-industry same functional stuff. So that's pretty much a judgment call when I'm doing the final, but I don't keep a by industry bio just because I found it's not really that useful, right? One of my goals is to have a single document that I'm managing.
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell you, even that's hard, right? I'm literally putting in all the projects I've done for the last 2 years in now, and even that takes a while to remember all the details and figure out how I'm going to word it, and that. So I try not to maintain multiple documents.
Yeah, that can be tricky. So you'll typically kind of make an update to this every year or two, as opposed to trying to, every time you finish a project, go and add the bullet for that one.
Pretty much. I would say every year or two, I'll go in and I'll write down every client that I've worked with since I redid it the last time. And then it'll take me, so I started this probably a month ago. It'll take me, part-time, it'll take me a couple of months to get around to digging up all the stuff, figuring out all the projects. Like I had a client that I worked at that hired me for 2 projects and had me engaged on 15, right? So the question of which ones of those 15 are worthy of a bullet and which ones I can combine, that actually is a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
And the great thing is, once the work is done, you have access to that. You don't have to rewrite it. So one of the other things that I have, I don't want to deviate too much into, is I also have a text file of groups of 5, 6, 8 bullets. So in addition to a bio, I can quickly go to automotive or aerospace or something like that, and then pop out a list of bullets to drop into an email, then to attach the bio as well.
Mm-hmm. And do you anywhere keep track of the actual client names, because that's been sanitized from this? So how do you kind of keep track of all just the clients that you served?
I originally had two bios, one that had the client names in parentheses, and I decided that was too much work. And so I've moved that to Excel for a couple reasons. One, to keep track of everything, and two, so I can have the count. So once I got over 100 clients, that was like really exciting. So, a client I was just on of ours in Canada, I told him, and I'm pretty sure it was either the 108th or the 110th client. So I keep track of that in Excel, because you'll find once you start this process, if you've got more than 20 years experience, you'll forget. I mean, there was probably things that you did 15 and 20 years ago that, were only a couple week projects. I worked for Arthur D. Little, and I remember one time, it was in 1996 in January, I worked on 8 different clients in 1 week. I had a bunch of active projects. I had a bunch of major proposals. And so when you're involved in that many smaller things, a lot of these things will escape you. Now, people who work at big 4 firms, they go work on a Monday through Thursday gig for 2 years, right? But for those of us in the strategy consulting and also have been on our own, keeping track of all the different little projects and little clients is hard. But again, once you sit down in the beginning and put it all in a single document and get your arms wrapped around it, you have the access to that for the rest of your career.
Yeah. So I was certainly super impressed by this. And by the way, you mentioned before we started recording here that you were okay with actually including a link to download this in the show notes, right? So that's awesome. So in the show notes, if you want to actually see Jay's bio, you can click on the link. So thanks for that. So that I think this is awesome. What sort of feedback have you received from people that you sent it to?
So I always like to use an example, not just for myself. I get very positive reactions. So Ashok Bagani, who was my former boss at Arthur Little, I always use him as an example. He had, I believe, 700 projects and a Excel file with 700 lines. And what he would do is, we would get a project. This is a real example. The Port of Caracas was asking us to help them privatize. And so we called up Ashok, and Ashok called a secretary and said, keep bullet 86, bullet 143, bullet 283. And she deletes everything else and comes back with a 1 or 2 page perfect bio, and the client gets it. And they think, oh my God, this is the perfect person. And so I always think of that example. That was a real example, by the way. I always think of that example as to what the motivation to keep this is, because the client gets my 3 or 4 page bio and they think Jay Martin's the guy, right? And it's 2 things. One, it's to convince them that I'm the guy. The second thing is from a standpoint, yourselves and other people, they know if they reach out to me that I'm going to get them something perfectly or close to perfectly tailored within an hour. And I would tell you it never takes me more than an hour. And so one, from a business development efficiency standpoint, it's an excellent tool to use. And 2, from a credibility and selling standpoint, it very much allows you to present yourself on the best foot with respect to the most relevant things, both from a functional standpoint and an industry or other things that you think the client might be impressed with.
Jay, this is fantastic. It's definitely think something that every consultant, whether you're an independent consultant or working at a big firm, ought to be maintaining. And thanks for being willing to share actually your copy of it. And thanks for coming on the show.
Excellent. Thank you. And people are welcome to reach out and contact me at my email, jmartin.dfw@gmail.com. And that's DFW like Dallas Fort Worth.
Man,
and thanks very much, Will. I appreciate it.
You must love flying, dude. DFW in the airport. Hey, Jay, thanks a lot for joining.
Cool. Appreciate it. Thanks, sir.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Unleashed, the show that explores how to thrive as an independent professional. Unleashed is sponsored by Umbrex, the world's first global community of top-tier independent management consultants. The mission of Umbrex is to create opportunities for independent management consultants to meet, share lessons learned, and collaborate. I'd love to get your feedback and hear any questions that you'd like to see us answer on this show. You can email me at unleashed@umbrex.com. That's UMBREX.com. If you found anything on the show helpful, it would be a real gift if you would let a friend know about the show and take a minute to leave a review on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. And if you subscribe, our show will get delivered to your device every Monday. Our audio engineer is Dave Nelson. Our theme song was composed by Gary Negbauer, and I'm your host, Will Bachman. Thanks for listening.